Hey there everyone, welcome back to another perfect pairing with me. I don't know about you, but between Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, I had a little bit of a crafting lull from the holidays. In order to stay creative and inspired, I depend on these two Altenew crafting essentials. Keep watching to find out how I keep motivated to craft. Before we get into today's project, make sure you subscribe to the Altenew channel for more card making and paper crafting tutorials. My Perfect Pairings with Jaycee series explores crafting techniques that effortlessly blend sure-to-love new releases and well-loved Altenew favorites. If you love these kinds of crafty tutorials, hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of my videos airing on the 2nd and 4th Sunday. Altenew makes crafting more accessible to everyone by providing free coloring pages that you can print onto your favorite cardstock. However, if you're looking for quality and inspiring images to use, the Botanical Elegance Watercolor coloring book is a great place to grab beautiful images. This coloring book has 2 pages of each image, one in a black outline and the other in a dark gray for that botanical illustration and graphite look. The 24 pages are printed on high-quality, cotton cold-pressed 140-pound watercolor paper. I'm going to keep things simple and use this bundle of tulips in the black outline. If you love 5x7-inch cards, these panels are perfect for you. I'm going to reduce mine to 4¼ by 5½ after coloring, so instead of coloring the whole page, I'm using this A2 template I made to mark off where I don't need to watercolor. I'm using a pencil to trace the outside image of my template so that when I reduce this panel, my pencil marks don't show up. I'm using this hard acrylic surface and some washi tape to hold down my watercolor panel. Other materials I'll need to watercolor are, of course, the colors themselves. This is the Palette Perfection Artist's Watercolor Tube Bundle, perfect for this bright tulip image. Then I'll need my brushes. I'm using just this brush from the Artist's Round Set. Then finally, aside from my 2 trays of water, I'm using this brand new petal palette from Altenew. I have been loving this ceramic glazed palette for my watercolors. It holds 12 wells of tube watercolor and is about 8 by 9 inches. So it is the perfect size for my crafting desk. I'm not going to describe the coloring process in great detail. This is supposed to be a showcase of easy ways to keep your creativity going. And I think that watercolor is a great way to keep going while practicing your coloring skills. If you don't have the watercolor coloring book, as I mentioned, there are free pages on the Altenew website. There are also many other coloring books for watercolor, the acrylic paint pens, and alcohol-based artist markers. And I love that these pages make a great basis for cards. The petal palette really helps me to keep my colors contained and has an appropriately sized area for mixing colors as well. If my colors got muddy, I was able to pick off the more solid dollop of watercolor and use a moistened towel to wipe away a single area. I'm curious if Altenew will expand these accessories with matching water cups or a brush holder. I did use all 12 colors in the Palette Perfection Artist's Watercolor Tube set, using the yellows, blues, and greens for my foliage elements, then the reds, pinks, and violets to color the tulip petals. I based my images off of the parrot tulips I planted in my garden in winter 2023 to bloom in spring 2024. I love the candy striped variety and wanted to replicate it on this bouquet. Once I was happy with the coloring of this bouquet, I used the titanium white watercolor to add a dreamy wash of white splatter throughout this bouquet. I let this completely dry back before removing the washi tape. Then I carefully followed my pencil markings to reduce the size of this 5x7-inch panel to 4¼ by 5½ inches. I added a stamped and die-cut sentiment from the stamp set bundle I'll show in the next card. I stamped the sentiment on a scrap of watercolor paper because I wanted to keep the same texture sentiment as the tulip background. I foam mounted the sentiment and added crystal clear enamel dots around the sentiment for a little hint of shiny texture. Altenew's coloring pages allow you to do the fun parts of coloring so that you can get to creating a finished card. The pre-made bouquet compositions are perfect for many occasions. Let's keep the coloring theme going in a slightly different way. This is Build-A-Garden Flowering Quince. The Build-A-Garden subscription is great for beautifully stamped bouquets. The accompanying layered stencils are great for applying colors, and I think another simple way to keep crafting if you're in a slump. I'm starting with a panel of fresh lemon Crafty Necessities cardstock on my original stamp wheel to stamp the quince fruit slice and quince flower branch. Instead of using black ink, I decided to use Sugar Kelp Fresh Dye ink. I thought this would give me a slightly softer outline on this bright yellow panel. After stamping the images, I grabbed my 9x12 sticky mat grid and the coordinating Build-A-Garden Flowering Quince stencils to color the images. Similar to the first card, the layering stencil sets make easy arrangements for a variety of skill levels. The layering guide found in the packaging insert also make coloring your images very simple, and all you have to do is decide on a color palette. I like stamping and ink blending on Altenew's Crafty Necessities cardstocks because it instantly adds a vibrant color base to your image as opposed to just using white cardstock. And there isn't anything wrong with using white cardstock if you just want to use that for your base as well. Using colored cardstocks just makes an interesting base for your Altenew Fresh Dye inks. Once I have ink blended my images with the layering stencils, I'll stamp my sentiment on this same panel. I'm using a mix of Olaf and Sugar Kelp to get a slight gradient on the sentiment. Then I'll use the add-on dies to cut everything out. Please note that the add-on dies are not part of the Build-A-Garden subscriptions and are just a great way to make cutting your Build-A-Garden images easier. On another panel of fresh lemon cardstock, I have already embossed Moroccan Tile 3D embossing folder. I want to amp up this panel just a little bit. I'm using Honey Drizzle Fresh Dye ink to ink press from the embossing folder onto the embossed panel. I'm inking up half of the text side of the embossing folder. I am planning on only using half of this panel, so I'm not going to ink up the whole embossing folder. And after applying a few layers of ink, I have a solid impression of color on my embossed panel. I reduced this to about 3 inches in height, 4¼ inches in width, and I'm foam mounting it to another panel of fresh lemon cardstock. The foam tape I'm using is the 1/8 inch thick by 1/2 inch width tape for a slight raise. Then to hide the seam between the embossed and standard panel, I arranged my quince images and sentiment with the thicker 1/4 inch foam tape. I like this U-shaped arrangement, by the way. I did this intentionally to keep the focus on the quince and sentiment. I added white splatters to this arrangement and essential white enamel dots to embellish this card panel. These are 2 simple ways Altenew makes getting started simpler with elegant printed arrangements or easy to color images with stencils. My series encourages you to shop your existing Altenew stash and rekindle their love with newer releases. Perfect Pairings with Jaycee airs on the Altenew channel every 2nd and 4th Sunday of the month. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Perfect Pairing episode with me, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.